Good evening, and welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families.
And I'm Merrill Hutchinson, President of Rock Solid Families. And we are excited to have you join us for the next 30 minutes as we talk about relationships. A huge shout out to our sponsors. Thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. We are so thankful for these businesses who have made this show possible. So whether you are listening live or online, Rock Solid Radio, helping to strengthen our community one family at a time on your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.
Good evening, Eagle Country. Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the Executive Director of Rock Solid Families, and we're hoping that you're having a great Memorial Day weekend if you're listening to us live, the unofficial start to summer, hun.
Yes, finally!
Now, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be the temperature of the summer, but the unofficial start to summer. But we've got a great show for you tonight as we take some time just to honor all those who've gone before us on this Memorial Day weekend. Hun, we did a show back in November around Veterans Day,
right? Yeah.
To honor all those who have served or who are currently serving our country. So if you didn't have a chance to listen to that show back in November, we strongly encourage you to go back and listen. But honey, I know we explained the difference between the two in November, but do you remember the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day?
Yeah. So, our veterans go out and serve every day and work for us and protect us. And so Veterans Day is celebrating their work and their commitment to us. Memorial Day goes probably a tier higher in the sense of ultimate sacrifice. And so these are the folks who have actually died for us, who've given their life for us. And so this is, for many families, a somber day.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
This is visits to the graveyards and things like that because the ultimate sacrifice was paid. Yeah. And so we take the time to just honor those folks for what they've done for us.
Yeah. And, it's never a bad time to also thank all of our servicemen and women, those who have served. If you're a veteran out there, thank you for your sacrifice. Of those who are currently serving, thank you for the sacrifices you make every day to protect our freedom. And we have 2 sons in the military, so we definitely understand the sacrifices that our daughter-in-laws, our grandchildren play, and just having their dads gone.
Yeah, just living that life is such a sacrifice, and we can so easily not acknowledge that or recognize it. I mean, the amount of time that our boys, and I know this is the case with all military families, that mom or dad is away from the family. Yeah. And, you have the struggles of trying to function as a single parent and still try to keep some life processes going. Right. So, well, hey, we're going to unfold this whole topic of Memorial Day and kind of take it in a couple different directions, bringing it into our own home. But
what this means for you.
Yeah, but before we get into all that, we got to talk about our sponsors, and we want to just say thank you for our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. They are the folks who come behind Rock Solid Radio and allow us the opportunity to be here on the airwaves and in the podcast form. So we thank them. As we talk about sponsors, we can't help to say, hey, if you like what you hear here, and you like the message, and again, we don't claim to be gurus or
we've just been in the trenches for a really long time.
We've just been in it, and we allow our faith to be a big, huge part of our foundation from which we operate. We've got some bumps and bruises. We've both been in fields that we've seen people with a lot of bumps and bruises, and so we want to try to get a message out. And so if you feel like there's value in this, we would really appreciate your prayers. You're talking about our messages, sharing our messages, turning other people on to our programming. And obviously, we need financial support. And so if you like what you hear, you can go to our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, and there is a donate button on there. You can click on that. Or if you just want to come out and see what we do, give us a call. We've got an office place where we do fitness classes. is we think that's a big part of our overall
mind, body,
health.
and spirit.
Yeah, and so you can come out and see that, even partake in a fitness class. And we have counseling offices where we do just a ton. Well, we don't actually call it counseling; we call it coaching, right?
Yeah.
And so we do coaching. We're not in the business of diagnosing mental conditions and things like that, but we are in the business of saying, where are you and where do you want to go? And what can we do to help you get there?
And your financial support helps us to reach families in crisis through one-on-one coaching that possibly can't afford it. We don't want to turn anyone away due to costs. And so we also offer free resources to our schools and our churches. So we want to be there for our families. So we would love to have you to come out and check it out. And as you said, Hun, we teach fitness classes 6 days a week. I teach Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 8 a.m., and you teach Tuesday, Thursday at 6 p.m.
Word on the street is that you're a lot meaner than I am. So, no, it's
and
fun.
Saturday at 9 a.m.
We get our classes kind of go back and forth about which one of us is mean. The bottom line is when you start moving and sweating, nobody actually loves that, but while they're going through it, but the payoff is real.
But what's really cool is that we have a time of prayer and devotion, scripture.
Within every workout.
And it's just been really cool. Today it was on prayer. And so we just talked about, is prayer our first go-to? And so that's just a really awesome time of getting together and praying for each other. And so it's very cool. But Hun, this topic, why this topic? Well, obviously it's Memorial Day weekend, getting back to if you're just tuning in on Eagle Country. Maybe you're listening live the night before Memorial Day. So we want to kind of set your mind to that topic. But also, if you're listening as a podcast later, it's definitely this topic of the Memorial Day prompted our show. But Hun, do you know where Memorial Day comes from?
Well, I just from doing a little bit of our work and getting ready for the show, I didn't know exactly like when it came to be or anything like that. I know the idea behind it, but I think it was like during the Civil War or something like that. It came together.
Yeah, I mean, all the way back to after the Civil War. When you have a Civil War, you have casualties on both sides.
Over 600,000 deaths in the Civil War.
Yeah, so in memory of all those lives lost, 620,000, year after year, women would begin to decorate the graves of different battlefields with flowers and wreaths and crosses. And so for over 100 years, this holiday was called Decoration Day.
I don't remember that. I mean, it was that changed in like the 60s. But I have read that,
So it wasn't until 1967 the name was officially renamed Memorial Day. They used to call it kind of both for many, many years. But officially, legally, it turned till Memorial Day in the 60s. So, but the reason for tonight's show just wasn't to fill our minds with needless trivia, Hun. We wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit. And again, we don't want to dishonor those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice, who we do remember on this Memorial Day weekend. But I kind of wanted to dig a little deeper with what kind of character, Hun, what kind of person does it take to make the ultimate sacrifice, to give your life up for something or someone?
Yeah.
Boy,
in this, we are more me-focused now than ever in our country. The term narcissism is thrown around like an everyday word. And I think, when our older boys started talking about military, we did not have a lot of military background in our family. And, that was for a variety of reasons, things coming out of the Vietnam War and people sort of rejecting a lot of the military and the authority and all of that. And all of a sudden when our, especially our older one, because he was the one kind of breaking the ice, started talking about, living for something bigger than himself. And the route that he has taken, he's not taken any easy route. No. He wants to be in it, and in it thick. And his younger brother has done the same thing, and they want to be at the tip of the spear and protecting what we have here. Yeah. And as a parent, there's two sides of me with that. One is, are you kidding me? We don't get to see them, and they're in harm's way, and even the training that they do. I mean, you're waiting for something that is just going to be devastating. But then the humbling part that comes to us as a parent is, my gosh, my kid is willing to sacrifice his life.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about this, what are we willing to die for?
Right.
What are we living for?
Yeah.
Am I living for just me and my stuff?
Yeah.
And what I want and my comfort? We've become so accustomed to living for comfort, air conditioning, nice vehicles, vacations. Or am I living for something bigger than that?
And I think that you and I, Hun, grew up in a really complacent generation where we didn't see a lot of war. We weren't actively fighting when you and I were growing up. And I think that 9/11 really changed that for our boys. And they were old enough where they actually came home and watched it on the news. And so I think that really created a resurgence of priority shifting and sacrifice, because you saw all those people, especially the firemen who gave their lives. I think we saw a real resurgence of firemen and policemen and military officers who say, I'm willing to die for this. I'm willing to sacrifice for our country, for other people. And I don't know if we had that when you and I were younger.
There's a risk that we run into living in such a prosperous nation. And when you live in such a prosperous nation,
a peaceful time,
and you were raised in the prosperity. In other words, you didn't create the prosperity. You were raised in it. That entitlement or that assumption that this just always was and always will be is something that just kind of settles in on you. And the next thing you know, we start having problems that to the rest of the world aren't really problems.
Exactly.
And so
my internet went out today.
Yeah, it's not fast enough, Or, I didn't get my Dunkin' Donuts iced tea. Or, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring that one up.
That was personal. That
hit home. But we start to think that we're sacrificing for things that really are not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And so we lose sight of what is really at the core of our being, of what we're willing to live for, what we're willing to die for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes huge awakenings like 9/11, like a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
It takes those things to make us go, whoa,
wow,
what am I really living for here?
Yeah, and I see this, if you believe in this thing called the Bible and in this man named Jesus, then we're given a pretty amazing image of what that looks like to sacrifice and die for someone or something. If you don't believe in the Bible, if you're not a believer, you don't believe in Jesus, that's okay. We get it. But check this out. If you read in the book of Romans 5:6-8, it says, "You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die." Okay, so you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you, maybe even sacrifice for you.
Or maybe for my kids.
For my kids, my
I would
husband.
die for my kids.
Right. But God demonstrated his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So
can I stop you just for a second? So when the Memorial Day, and we're talking about our soldiers giving their life, there's a lot that happens in this country that our men and women are willing to die for that they don't agree with.
Right.
In other words, in their mind, maybe unrighteousness, whether they're fighting for something that they don't believe in. But they're fighting for the freedom for somebody else to have that right.
Right, that choice.
And so, that's the different level. Like that whole idea of, well, I would be willing to die for my kids. Right. And again, I'm not trying to belittle that, but okay, I get that. I get
flesh
that.
And blood,
But would you be willing to die for somebody that annoys you, that you don't like, that maybe even did you wrong? Would you be willing to die for them?
Yeah.
And so that's what our military guys do, and they got that message from Christ.
Right. Yeah, regardless of what you think about Jesus and who you think he was or wasn't, he still died for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he paid the ultimate sacrifice for you, even the haters. Even those people that spit on him and beat him and mocked him and crucified him. The Bible says he still died for you. That's crazy.
Yeah. And even asked for God to forgive them in the process of them taking him down. And so I think that's, again, we've had this conversation before, and you talk about, should I what is my value in being a Christian? And the value, of course, is the gift, but the message that Christ gives is so counterculture.
Right.
It's so against my natural way of thinking.
Sure.
But it is so life-giving. It is so eternal. And it proves itself out. Like, if I learn to, even in when I'm being attacked, if I learn to come back with love rather than attacking,
right.
I'm gonna get more
right.
fruit from that. And
yeah.
so the message of Christ is just amazing.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the statement, hon, it's not a hill I would die on?
Yeah.
The expression came from the days before air warfare, when soldiers used to camp out on a hill or a ridge, and then the battles became slaughterhouses when commanders would force their men to take these heavily fortified hills. So have you ever seen the movie Hamburger Hill? That's a really ugly, hard one. But commanders would avoid hill battles if at all possible, because it usually meant really high casualties. And so when a commander ordered to charge a hill, he would usually ask, is this a hill worth dying over? So the question we posed earlier, what are you willing to die for?
Yeah. I think of the beaches of Normandy. And, we've seen several movies that have been made out of this. And these guys, instead of climbing the hill, so to speak, the beaches are fortified with the enemy in this case. And as you come off this amphibious vehicle,
people are going to die.
People are going to be dying all over. And I just can't imagine me going, okay, well, I'm good with this, but these guys didn't. Not that they said that they were good with this, but they went through the commitment. And obviously they had fear and anxiety and all of these things, just as Christ did, right? Going to the cross. He said, hey, if somebody, God, if there's another way, if there's a better way, can we do that other way?
Right.
But I'm still willing to go through with this. And that is that conscious decision of sacrificing for something that, this is not going to be easy.
Right. Yeah. So who or what are you willing to sacrifice for? In other words, what hills are you willing to die on, fight for, defend? If you're a parent, what are your kids seeing in you? Are they? And I was looking at a couple years ago, Huffington Post did this article on the most trivial things people are fighting for, or willing to die for. One guy said he would let a car crash into him if they tried to merge into his lane without a turn signal.
There you go. That's
he would literally just let his car crash. If you have your signal, you're good. Yeah. But if you don't, forget it. I am not letting you in my lane.
Well, we've heard stories of people shooting other people for the shoes that they're wearing, or they wanted those shoes,
or the parking spot that they took from them.
Yes, we've heard stories of people pulling up in a parking lot and somebody pulling up in front of you and stealing your spot. By the way, that does. I'm not saying that is worth dying for, but have you ever been waiting for a parking spot and all of a sudden some dude just pulls right in front of you? You're like, really?
But
really, did that just happen?
You're bad. Maybe we should be coaching you. But our show last week, hon, about letting kids fail. If you didn't have a chance to listen to that, I really encourage you to go back and listen. But so many times parents are willing to fight and argue and pull a gun or swing a fist at somebody because their kid got struck out and you didn't agree with that.
Are you willing to die on that hill?
I mean, that's what we're fighting for. Yeah. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes back to that whole idea of that's what prosperity does, that you start fighting for things that you go, wow, this really is not that big of a deal. But it, at that point in time, it's like the most important thing. And so, there are a lot of silly things that we say that we're willing to fight for and die for. But I think what is the ultimate sacrifice, and what is the value of that? And so giving our life, not for a pair of shoes, not for whether our kid gets to play the next inning at the ball game, but giving our life for our idea of protecting a certain principle, protecting the way of this nation. Protecting the good that we have. That's huge.
What was the statement that you said the other day about if we stand for nothing,
we'll fall for anything?
Yeah.
You stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And that's just, that has become very dangerous because nobody wants to offend anyone. And so everybody wants to give a thumbs up to everything, whether it's something of style or whether it's something of principle, you know, and there, my gosh, that could be a whole nother show. We could start unraveling all kinds of topics out here that if you stand for them, somebody might call you a bigot or prejudice or whatever. And you're like, you know, I've got to create a foundation. And that gets us back to that whole, we're called rock solid families for a reason. And because Matthew 7 talks about the idea of building your house on the rock. You got to have it on something. Otherwise, it's shifting sand, right? It's just like, well, I don't know. That seems like a good idea to me. And are you willing to fight for those things?
And as the story, Jesus tells this parable, the wise and the foolish builders in Matthew 7, verses 24 through 27. And, you know, the storms are coming in both houses. They both have waves and wind and rain. And so we're not saying that life is going to be perfect. Actually, it's going to be hard because when you stand for something, you are going to get pushback. You are going to get criticism. And you got to decide, is this worth fighting for? But if you don't stand for anything, you're going to fall for... No, what is that?
If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Come on, work with me here. Work with me. Yeah, and so the point is, we could say, and some of us are natural fighters, man. I mean, we have a child in our home that would give his life for the jelly bean that just, you know, got taken from him. He's a natural fighter, okay?
Or to defend the lie that
we
already know is a lie.
And then we have another child in our home that would roll up right away and like, no, I'm not going to do the fight, okay? And so a lot of that fight is very natural to some, and anxiety is natural to some of us. And so trying to say, okay, wait, you know, if I'm a natural fighter, what am I fighting for? And define that. Go through that process and say, you know, is this truly a value? Is this generational? Is what I'm fighting for today, would I fight for this 20 years from now, 30 years from now? Or am I fighting for this now because it's the here and the now moment? And so that is so important that we teach our kids that, you know, hey, if you're a fighter, what are you fighting for? And ground that in something. If you are an anxious kid or a kid, you know, we talk about fight or flight. If you're a flight kid and you just kind of want to run from everything, you know, to help that your child in those situations of saying, okay, wait a minute, let's say instead of walking away from this, you know, you're in a tough job, you don't like it, or you just want to quit. You just want to quit. No. We got to get some fight here. We got to stick with this and carry it through.
So on this Memorial Day weekend, if you're just tuning in to Eagle Country, we're taking some time to honor and remember all those who have died for you. Take some time this weekend. Pray for those families that have lost a loved one. If you have children, take some time to teach them why this day is important. I know there's a lot of ceremonies that go on. I know there's one locally in Bright, Indiana that I used to participate in where they had a prayer service and, you know, different people that would read things. And it was just really kind of a really neat way to remember what that day is for. So I really encourage you to take some time to honor and remember all those who have died for you.
Yeah, as a parent, this is sometimes difficult because, like we've talked about before, we've grown up with quite a bit of prosperity, and we don't frequent the graveyard because we just don't have a connection to it. But the idea of taking your kids, and maybe you don't have to go to the graveyard, but the idea of just saying, hey, let's talk about what that generation did before us that got us to where we are. And you know, those are the things that allow your kids to start to have appreciation.
And it doesn't even have to be Memorial Day. Like, we're hoping to take our kids to D.C. this summer and to go to the Vietnam...
Wait, do they know this yet? They're not allowed to listen to this show
The Vietnam Wall Memorial. And just to walk that wall and to look at those names of the folks that died for us during that war is incredible. Or the beautiful new World War II memorial that we've, you know, gone to. Just to see that, that's important stuff that we need to continue to do.
The Holocaust Museum.
Wow.
You know, we have been to D.C. multiple times, and one of the things that is just always kind of captivating of the experience is that whether it's the Vietnam Wall or the museums, the solemn attitude and the presence of people there, that you don't see kids running around and laughing and playing, or if they do, you'll see a parent or somebody say, no, this is not the place.
Solemn ground.
That's so important to do, because they won't get it maybe when they're 5, but maybe when they're 25, they'll go, wow, we're here because these people aren't here.
Right, exactly. Take some time to reflect on what you spend your time and energy on and your money. Before we're quick to criticize and condemn, is this really a hill I want to die on? Is this really a cause worth fighting for and sacrificing for? What are people seeing in me? Hon, we believe that our investment is our heart. And so whatever we invest in, our time and our energy and our money, is where our heart is. And so make sure that you prioritize that to reflect what you value. The hills you are willing to die on, what are you willing to sacrifice for?
Yeah, because we are rock solid families and we believe in the value of the family, we challenge you. Are you living in a way that shows that your family, that you are willing to fight for them, that you're willing to die for them, that you're living for them? And, when times get rough in the family, and they will, is divorce going to be a first option?
Right.
Or is buying your way out of the problem going to be an option? Instead of saying, and this is a great conversation with your kids, when we sit down at the dinner table and we're in a struggle, to say, guys, we're not giving up on this.
Right.
It's ugly right now.
Yep.
It's muddy, but we're going to fight through this because our family is worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, hon, you bring up a good point about marriage. We're giving up so easy. Make a commitment the day you walk down the aisle that I am not giving up. I am fighting for this marriage. And it's easy when things are beautiful and easy and good, but when it gets tough, that you've already made that commitment that this is a hill I'm dying on, and I am going to fight for my marriage. Obviously, it takes two, but what are you doing to make the effort to make that a sacrifice?
Yeah, and the idea that we have to get out of this instant gratification, which that'd be a good show. We should do that. Wait, I think we did that show already. But the idea that this is generationally impacting.
Yeah,
that
it is.
Our parents, we both had great parents. Not perfect parents, great parents that protected the integrity of our family.
Yep.
And everything from doing things together as a family to honoring your mother and father to respecting each other, that has lived on, all right? And now we're trying to do that same thing. And so the generational impact is huge. And so, yes, there are moments within the day that I'm just like, this is just driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But I have to shake it off and say, okay, what's the long haul look like?
Right. So if you feel like your home is on sinking sand, if you're struggling and your home is, and your marriage, your family is just struggling, we really encourage you to call us at Rock Solid Families, 812-576-ROCK, 812-576-ROCK. We would love to walk alongside you and help you lay a rock solid foundation for your family and your home. It is possible. To us, it's a hill worth dying on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we thank those who have gone ahead and taken the battle. So, okay, gosh, here we are. Time's up. So before we leave, we want to thank all of you for listening and for all your help and your support. We appreciate that so much. Feel free to continue to send us questions and comments through our emails. Which is you can check out at our webpage at rocksolidfamilies.org. We want to say thank you to Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. Thank you to all that have gone before us on this Memorial Day. Thank you for your ultimate sacrifice. Make it a great Memorial Day.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. For help or more information about what you've heard this evening, contact us at rocksolidfamilies.org or call us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-ROCK. Again, a huge thanks to our sponsors, Maxwell Construction, Greendale Cinemas, Mansfield Insurance Agency, and Erie Insurance. If you have questions you'd like answered on air, or you want to chime in on something you've heard this evening, go to our Facebook page, Rock Solid Families. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to tune in next Sunday evening at 7:30 for another episode of Rock Solid Radio. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and for my husband Merrill and I, thanks for tuning in to your hometown radio, Eagle Country 99.3.